I am so happy to welcome to the show one of my closest friends. I've known this guy for Rob, oh, going on almost 40 years, sir. Almost 40 years
Before the turn of the century, sir.
before the turn of the century. Rob James has many hats that he wears. He's going to talk about it today. All the different ways he is impacting community, the wealth gap, the legacy of his father's extraordinary leadership. So much to unpack today. But Rob, let's first talk about the many hats you wear and talk about the National Bankers Association and your role at Carver State Bank.
Roy, thank you for having me. In all seriousness, I'm a really big fan of what you're doing with the Sovereign Path and trying to help people kind of find, purpose as well as success. And I think those things can blend. I've currently serve as president and CEO of Carver Financial Corporation, which is the holding company for Carver State Bank, which is a state chartered bank in Georgia, as well as BHM Bank, which is a state chartered bank in Alabama. I'm immediate past chairman of the National Bankers Association, which is the nation's only advocacy group for minority depository institutions. And I still currently serve as the chairman of the board of the National Bankers Association Foundation, which is a 501(c)(3) that we created during my tenure as chairman of the association.
I can remember in our earlier careers, both of us and a lot of our friends in our 30s and 40s, we were on a lot of different boards. And some of those boards were organizations we were passionate about, and others were boards that maybe we were proximate to, alumni associations. All of your involvement seems to be synced around the same purpose. Was that intentional? And how does that impact your overall sort of day job when you have these different obligations and different responsibilities in these nonprofit and sort of trade association appointments?
Yeah, Rory, that's a really good question because, if you're a high performing person or if you have, just a lot of ambition or want to make, significant systemic kinds of changes, you find yourself pulled in a lot of different directions. A lot of people want, your time, your energy, your input. And what I've tried to do in my career is to focus on at least the theme
Mm,
of, bringing resources to underserved community. If I look back on all the different twists and turns of my career, which I think I've counted 7 different actual career, you know, turns.
right.
The guiding theme that I was able to uncover that I was really passionate about is bringing resources to underserved communities. So, whether it was my early career as a lawyer, the things that I got the most excited about were, um, being inclusive in contracts between,
Hmm.
governments and corporations, and making sure that minority-owned businesses had opportunities. The things I got most excited about when we were in business together was again connecting, you know, uh, smaller minority-owned companies, women-owned companies to large corporations or government opportunities. Then I went back into practicing law, doing public finance work, and it was really what got me excited about that was getting resources into underserved communities, whether it was libraries or hospitals or kinds of facilities that help people that are hurting. And then I figured out that all of that was happening in the background in my house when I was growing up. And my dad had been doing that work for 50 years. And
Hmm.
so I decided to kind of come full circle and get back involved. And so all of the board work and all of those kind of nonprofit obligations, I like to try to stay in that basic lane of things that are going to be additive to what I'm doing professionally, so that I'm not, having to shift gears and start thinking about a hospital because that's not my main role is to bring resources to a
Hmm.
hospital serve community, not to be on the board of the hospital. If
Hmm.
you get my feel.
I find it fascinating, just as a quick sidebar, that there were four of us that were really five of us that were startup entrepreneurs around 2000. And I look at the careers of all of us that each of us took a thread from that ethos of that business, and it has continued our career. Steve Brooks has taken the real functional excellence of procurement and has become a procurement executive. You have taken the small business, black wealth creation, and now you're president of a bank. Gino has taken the local city contracting piece of it and run with it. Heath Butler has taken the investment and VC, the sort of the finance part of it, and taken that. And I've taken this sort of leadership inclusion piece in my career. I want to ask you about the role of black banks in terms of small business development and entrepreneurship, and what role do black banks play in that relationship? How should entrepreneurs think about engaging black banks, and what work do you do engaging or being a positive net impact for small businesses?
Yeah. So, our corporation is a mission-driven organization. We're a bank holding company that owns two different banks, but we have an overall vision and mission. So the vision is financial freedom for all. The mission
Mm,
is to provide the building blocks to financial freedom. And so we believe that there are four building blocks to financial freedom: uh, businesses, homes, money, and community. We focus, the first one is businesses, because we think that entrepreneurship, uh, being able to control not only your own businesses and your own community, but the ability to then hire people within the community, the ability to do that B2B commerce between
mhm,
businesses
mhm,
in your own
mhm.
community, are the things that really cause communities to be able to thrive. And so our institution has been around really since 1927, focused on those basic kind of core values of helping to drive building businesses in the community. And so by providing access to capital for you know purchase of new equipment, purchase of a new building, being able to have working capital lines that help from a cash flow perspective, those are services that we provide to our businesses to make sure that they are stronger. If you look at our 2024 lending, our about 60%, I'm sorry, 55% of our lending was either to small businesses, projects for affordable housing,
Mm.
or community facilities. And so we're really focused on the kind of lending that is going to create wealth and value through the building of businesses in the community.
And speaking of community, I mean, we're talking some of these macro issues, but Carver State Bank is a bank in Savannah. It serves
Yes.
the local community. I mean, talk about how you lean into economic development and the wealth gap in Savannah as a local institution.
Sure. So, you mentioned our founding in Savannah. Um, we are still really hyper focused on Savannah, um, in the midst of expansion, right? So, the institution is really expanding and is serving kind of a statewide clientele from our two little
Mhm,
branches in Savannah, Georgia,
mhm.
leveraging technology, leveraging different kinds of financial tools that we can use to have, really great impacts in smaller communities and bigger communities across the state of Georgia. And now through the bank in Alabama, we're, kind of adopting that same model. But in Savannah, we're very, very kind of grassroots and tied into the community. I'll give you a really quick example.
Mhm, mhm.
We just launched a small dollar loan program pilot. And this is a program for people to borrow $2,500 or less. And the commitment we made was we would turn those applications around within 48 hours. So if you applied, you'd know whether you're going to get this loan, and we would, fund it within 48 hours. And we were doing this, with very minimal technology. So we didn't have a
Mm,
ton of fintech. We had an online application on the front end, but we were really kind of processing them manually. Well, we did a pilot program. We didn't do any social media. We didn't do any email blast. We had my dad went to one meeting at a local church and talked about it. My sister, who also works in the company, she went to one event the local Black Business Expo and handed out flyers. So we didn't do a lot of marketing. It was very and at first we got 10 applications and then we got 15. We had to stop the pilot early because we had gotten to almost 1,000 applications.
What?
It was viral by a in an old school viral way.
Like analog?
People were picking up the phone, calling their friends and family all across the state, not just locally. And so that showed us 2 things. One is, um, the importance of still having that communication and connection to individual people, right? Just talk to your customers and tell them about what the products and services are. So that human connection. The second thing it taught us is that, um, people are hurting out here, bro.
Mhm,
People
mhm,
are still struggling. Um,
mhm.
when we asked people why they were applying for these loans, um, healthcare emergency, um,
Mm,
behind on their rent, need to get a car repaired. These are folks who are going to really high priced, um, title pawn, you
mm.
know, third party brokers to get money at it that's very expensive. And we were able to supply that emergency funding on a much, more cost effective, reasonable basis to a actual
Wow.
financial institution. That local connection, it not only helped people in Savannah we were able to serve, but then it actually started to spread across the state because we were bringing in technology. So being high tech and high touch helped not just the Savannah local community, but also people across the state.
And I wanna give a sort of a shout to those of us that are more financially secure, that, yes, it's okay to have your money in the, you know, majority banks, but take a car loan out at a black bank. Take a personal loan out at a black bank. Put some deposits in black banks, because when we put deposits in black banks, they are going to recirculate in those communities. I know my money is circulating in the broader American community thanks to, Charles Schwab and Wells Fargo, but I also want my money to circulate in communities of color and communities that are local, places where I live and my friends live, so that they can go, so that my car loan or my loan from a black bank goes to someone that is in need. So I just want to give a shout out to anybody listening. Go find your local black bank. Look up Carver State Bank if you're in Georgia, and make some deposits. Put your money into these banks so that we can circulate this money into communities that need it.
Yeah, Rory, just to get a little bank nerd, man,
Please.
those deposits that you're making in the bank, especially if it's if it's not cash that you're actually having to spend. I mean,
Hmm.
money that you can just have parked in the bank, it makes a huge difference. Because that's the money that we're actually lending against. The way
Mm,
that banking capital is structured, you have equity capital, which is the money that people are investing, stockholders, et cetera. And then you have the deposit capital. And deposits are really kind of a liability on the balance sheet on the one hand, because, think about it. When you deposit your money, you want to be able to pull it out, right?
mhm,
So I have to be able to have enough of that liquidity to meet the demand when people come in and ask for their money back, or if they write checks and swipe their debit card or whatever they're doing to spend money. Uh, but having that stable core deposit over
mhm,
time, that liquidity is what we're actually making loans against. And so there's formulaic processes that we decide how much of the liquidity can we lend versus how much do we have to keep in house to make sure we can meet demand. But those are the loans, so that
mhm.
funding is really the loan. And the point that you made is so critical. It doesn't have to be all the money, right? I
Right.
may not have all of the, wealth management, ability of a Charles Schwab right now, but I do have the ability to hold cash. I do have the ability to provide checking and savings. We're spending
Mhm,
a lot of money and a lot of resources upgrading all of our technology so that we'll be able to serve more people more quickly, remotely and digitally. Our online account opening, our true online account opening is gonna launch in mid-October, I believe, and so we'll be able to actually kinda quickly open those accounts for people, but you can go online onto our website at bhm.bank, or at carverstatebank.com,
Mhm.
and you can fill out a form and say, "I wanna open an account," and we'll work with you to bring in a deposit that, again, is gonna get reinvested in the community. Our community impact, story is, you know, par excellence. I mean, if you look at our lending in any given year, 90% of that lending, 90% plus, is being driven back into the communities that we care about, and that's really what it is that we're trying to accomplish
Mhm.
through our mission.
And just to put a finer point on that, just to give people some perspective about how I'm actually operating with my wife, our financial bottom line is we take money that we make from our business and we think about investing it in other Black businesses. So we've done startup investments in Black entrepreneurs. We've done investments in venture capital funds, and we think about our money with Black banks as an investment in that Black bank. So yes, I know people have all sorts of automatic bill pay with the big banks, and it's hard to divorce that from your day-to-day reality and start new. But you can get a car loan, you can make some deposits, you can put money in a CD in a Black bank, and it at scale is transformational. Let's talk about the career part of this because you are Robert James II.
Yes.
There is a Robert James Sr., and both of you have had the title of president of the bank or leading the bank. You've been on the board of the bank. Your father's had a storied legacy as the president of this bank. You went to Howard, you went to Harvard Law School. You could have been a partner at a law firm. You could have been the head of social impact for some bank. Tell me why you did this with all the options available to you.
So, Rory, years ago, I remember you and I would talk about this, that the benefit of, um or the blessing that our parents gave us
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
was that we have options and we can take risks that they never would be able to take.
Mm-hmm.
So, our parents, that baby boom generation, especially in the African American community, they really paid a price in order to open up opportunities for us. So our
Yep.
generation has, I think, in some ways, a responsibility to take some chances, in order to, build on that legacy, right? Well, we tried a whole bunch of things. I mean, you and I tried one. We tried a
Yes,
lot,
sir.
and we learned a lot of really important lessons,
Mm-hmm.
and learned about ways in which capital flows in the
Yep.
economy. My big takeaway from all of those different twists and turns in my career was to get an insight into how capital flows in the economy and the importance of capital and how it
Mm.
can be transformational.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I look back and I think, gosh, this thing that I never wanted to do, this job that I never wanted to have, this thing that my dad has been doing my entire life, literally, um, is all about that. It's all
Right.
about g you know, taking a little bit of capital and exponentially multiplying it within the community. And it would be robbery not for me not to take the risk of coming back to our
Yes.
own
Yes.
enterprise. Much smaller. I don't make as much money. I could count the ways in which this seems risky
Mm-hmm.
to other
Mm-hmm.
people. Why not go get the big partnership in the law firm or the big corporation, in-house counsel role, or community affairs role, or whatever it is? No, I wanna put all of the education and resources and experiences that I've had and take the chance to build something for us that belongs to us, whether it's,
Mm-hmm.
the people who grew up in my household, but also the broader sense of, something that we can count on. So when we need to have an opportunity to get a fair hearing
Mm-hmm.
about our business loan, you have a place to go where you're going to get a fair hearing. I'm not going to say yes to everyone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's one of the hardest parts about this job is you have to
Mm.
say no so much, because I can't take inexorable risks. But because I have to preserve the capital for the next person that has the great idea that really can't
Mhm.
execute and has the ability to repay. But if I don't take the chance and pour my own resources and my own intellectual capacity and my own desire into this enterprise, then who else will? And so
Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
that's the way I sort of think about it.
Yeah.
It's it's not just an obligation, it's really a calling.
It's a calling. It reminds me of the work that Joseph Campbell did with this notion of the hero's journey. And when we start in our career, those of us that are blessed with great educations, parental support, credentials, all that, the world seems like there's so many options available to us, limitless options. You get in your career, those options begin to narrow. They begin to narrow because of culture fit, toxicity in the workplace, your skill set, what you thought you were good at, what you were actually good at. And then there's this sort of magic element that comes at some point in your career. And I think it happened in yours and it definitely happened in mine. And that is the uniqueness of fit that I could, as a headhunter, I could find 100 people that are around as good as you to be the head of social impact at PayPal, where we place somebody. Or I could find 50 people that are probably as good as you to be the head of inclusion and impact at Tapestry, where we place somebody. But how many people can lead Carver State Bank into the new era, an era of fintech and crypto and the need for capital flows in our community? It's maybe one, maybe two, and the other person is probably your sister. Okay. There are probably two people in the world that are uniquely situated to do that. So it becomes almost our indispensability in our career that helps become the whisper in our ear to say, if not you, then who? If not you, then who is going to do this? Who is going to preserve, extend, enlarge this legacy of these institutions, whether it's a storied one like Carver State Bank or a small business like Protege Search that I'm building from the ground up. So I think about that as kind of like the OG wisdom that we have right now about this indispensability. And last point I'll make is that I thought I had to be some big corporate guru to get all of the other achievements I wanted in my career. The corporate board seat, the high compensation, the distinguished lecture at Harvard Law, the presentations to the Biden White House and Congress. All that came from the small business that I'm operating called Protege Search. So I think when you walk in purpose, you wind up getting everything else because your capacity just enlarges, your impact increases, and the joy in your community, I think, gets to its highest level.
Yeah, Rory, I think first point I want to make is there's actually 3 people because I have 2 sisters.
Two
So only
sisters.
one of them
That's
works
right.
in the bank right now, but
That's
yeah, I have
right.
2 sisters, and so there's 3 of us who in the world who could do this role. I want to make that real
That's
clear.
right. Don't get in
Uh,
trouble.
have any issues at Thanksgiving.
Don't get in trouble.
The other real point though is that by walking in this purpose, you know, I've been able to get appointed to a corporate board. I,
Hmm.
have been a leader of a national organization and been able to have, the opportunity to speak to, um, you know, up to the Vice President of the United States,
Hmm.
Secretary of the Treasury, many cabinet secretaries, testified before, Senate Banking Committee, House Financial Services Committee, be able to give major addresses, be a sought after speaker at various events all around this issue about how to move capital in communities. And of the black owned institutions, all of which are small relative to others the size of banks, we're one of the smallest.
Mm.
um, we're one of
Mm.
the smallest. But we punch way above our weight class because we're innovative and we're doing different things, and the reason why we're able to do some things that others haven't figured out or don't do is because of all those other experiences I had.
Mhm.
You know, it was seeing the legal process and how that worked. It was seeing how policy gets made and how policy can impact how we can access capital to get capital into communities where the community doesn't have its own capital. And so you got to
Mhm.
bring in-source capital to the community rather than the community continuing to outsource its own, meager amounts of capital outside of the community. You know, all of those lessons that we learn, whether it goes back to when we were, interning on Capitol Hill when we were in
Mhm.
college, or the things that we did when we were in law school or afterwards. All of those lessons kind of led back to this, and you're so right that living in that purpose and finding that thing that truly gets me out of the bed every day uh,
Mhm.
is leading to the other opportunities rather than the
That's
other way
right.
around.
That's right. All right, sir, as we wrap up, we have a signature closeout question, and it is, what is the piece of career advice that you know now with some near certainty that you want to leave to the generation coming up, millennials coming up, hitting their prime in their 40s and 50s, some of the young Gen Xers out there? What piece of career advice that you know now with some certainty that maybe you didn't know early on in your career?
Um, it's the thing that I tell my daughter, who is a 20-year-old junior in college, that I would tell your daughter or any of these folks who are younger than us. We're starting to get that gray hair.
Come on, man.
That first thing that you do is not the last thing you do. And
Mm,
so get started doing something. Lean
mm,
into that thing. Get good at it. Um, it's most likely not the last thing you'll ever do. And so you're not going to make a mistake by choosing a path. Just get on the path.
mm-hmm.
Um, and you'll be able to make turns and make adjustments as you go. But I really focus on that first thing is not the last thing. Just invest in the thing that you are doing and the opportunity that you do have, so that you'll get the next opportunity and you can kind of see, you know, and figure out what you're passionate about, how to connect what you're really good at, what you're passionate about, and what's going to make that impact so that you can do something that is purposeful. Because when you live in the purpose, then I think everything else comes together.
Ladies and gentlemen, the doors of the church are open. The Right Reverend Robert James, thank you for that incredible benediction to this wonderful episode. And tell us where we can learn more about Carver State Bank and connect with you.
So I'm on LinkedIn. Um, so you just look up Robert James Carver and you'll find me. We have two websites. We have two banks. I'm so excited about the bank in Alabama, BHM.bank. Uh, Businesses, Homes, and Money is how
Mm,
the name of the bank. So
okay. Okay.
BHM.bank. We just launched a new website, have a tremendous leader there, Jason Eppinger, who's from that community, is so passionate about building that institution in Birmingham and in the state of Alabama,
Mm.
kind of along the lines of what we've done with Carver in Georgia. And then also just carverstatebank.com. So BHM.bank and carverstatebank.com. But also, you can find me on LinkedIn and see some of the things that I'm doing, and how we're trying to move community forward.
Rob James, my phase three brother, I am so proud of you and thank you for dropping some wisdom here on the Sovereign Path.
Thank you, Rory. I appreciate it.